Hey guys, welcome back. Today I have my March bullet journal set up for 2020 in my A6 Stalogy notebook. I'm just flipping through my supplies so you can see what I will be pulling in. I will of course link all of these down below if they are available, but nothing new here. Uni Jetstream, a ballpoint pen for the majority of my writing, and a Tombow dual brush pen. This is in the number 553 that I'll be using as my accent color for March. Now my notebook is an A6 size Stalogy. It's a little bit smaller. It's about a 4x6 size, a little bit bigger than that, but it is more or less a passport size notebook, and I'm enjoying this small size. It fits in my purse very easily, fits in my backpack, it's easy for traveling. However, it does create some mental challenges in learning how to set things up a little bit differently. I have to rethink my spreads constantly, learn how to write smaller, decide what I'm willing to break up and move into different pages that don't necessarily need to be together, so I don't feel like everything is as cramped as it could be if I tried to fit everything onto A6 size pages. But it's been a fun creative process, so hopefully you guys will enjoy watching this setup. I am starting March out with my monthly spread, and I'm doing a month on 2-page calendar layout. This month I am downsizing just a touch and going for a 3x3 grid layout per day, so that allows me to get Monday through Saturday on the left-hand page and then just Sunday on the right-hand page. I am using a ruler to create a straight edge because I just prefer to have clean, crisp lines. I did go ahead and take my notebook out of my notebook cover. I have been using an Estelle Scarlet Perfect Fit /TN cover in Shadowboxer, which is the all black cover. I will link Estelle in the description box for you guys in case you want to check that cover out. I can do the majority of my writing in the cover, not a problem, but when it came to actually drawing the spread, I just found it was a little bit easier to have my notebook flat on the table. So this month I am also trying something a little bit new, and I'm trying Powersheets. My friend Bridget gifted them to me as an early birthday present, and I've gone through all the prep work in February. So going into March, I kind of have narrowed down the habits that I'm tracking. I've definitely identified some long-term goals that I want to be working on, and I'm switching up my monthly spread page due to this process. Basically, I decided I wanted to have a monthly dashboard. I wanted to see everything in one place. So I'm a very visual person, which is why I choose to draw out a calendar. I have a lot of travel coming up for work along with my personal life in March. So I like to see when I'm in town, when I'm out of town, things of that nature, thus the monthly layout. And I also have daily, weekly, monthly habits / goals that I'm working on achieving now through the Powersheets process. And if you've seen the Powersheets notebooks, I will link the Cultivate That Matters website in the description bar for you guys if you want to check that out for yourself. I don't really plan on sharing that notebook online because it is such a long process to go through and a little bit more personal setting up those goals. But if you are using the Powersheets and you don't want to fill it out within that notebook necessarily because it's large, it's like an 8.5 by 11 spiral brown notebook, and there's no way I could travel with that every week. It would drive me crazy, and I don't want to necessarily tear out the tending pages, so I'm just recreating those trackers within this monthly spread so I have this page tabbed and I can get to it as easy as possible. So on the bottom part of that page, I created my daily habit trackers. I think the first 4 are related to the most important daily habits that really correlate to the goals that I've set for this year. And then the bottom items are things that I just kind of need a habit tracker to keep me on task for. It helps me remember to do little things that I'm trying to do every day, like my photo a day challenge. It's not a year-long goal to like absolutely get a photo a day, but having that tick mark just reminds me at last minute, hey, you need to do that, and it keeps me focused on it, because if I wasn't trying to track small things like that, I would just totally forget because it's not second nature to me yet. So some of those things are less important than others, but I tried to put the important things towards the top of the list, and I'll probably go back in and highlight them later so I can identify that those are my priority items. I did go in and number March the 1st through the 31st. I'm using my Uni Jetstream ballpoint pen to do all of this writing. It's sort of my tried and true. It works really well on the Stalogy paper. It doesn't smear. Well, I will say it does smear a little bit actually, which is really surprising to me because it doesn't smear much on the Tomwbow River paper, which I find to be a lot more finicky than the Stalogy paper, but it's still by far the best pen that I've found to use in this notebook, where it dries the fastest. But every now and then, if my hands are like super warm and I go over something, I will find that somehow I made a smudge, but it's still my go-to within this pen. I pulled out my ruler and I created 5 circle tick boxes up towards the top. That's where I'm going to put my monthly priority items. I end up kind of rearranging that a little bit. And now I'm pulling out a Tombow Fudenosuke Brush Pen. This is the hard tip, so it's a little bit smaller and a stiffer tip. And I'm not the best at calligraphy. I'm learning or trying to learn, so I'm pulling out this pen more and more within my planning system so I can get more practice in, but definitely a little bit more easy to work with the hard tip versus the soft tip for me, just because I find I need a little bit more control with a steady hand. So I loosely wrote in March up top in 2020. I wrote in priorities over my monthly big goals for the month, and then daily down below. And then now I'm working on setting up my weekly habit tracker. So if you saw my February setup, I did do a whole separate 2-page spread just related to my trackers. I had my daily trackers, and then at the bottom, I always do this sort of like weekly tracker. And within that weekly tracker, these are the things that kind of help me keep my household in order. It's things like just remembering, hey, do the laundry, clean the house, upload to YouTube, those little things that I'm trying to do more on a weekly basis. And through the Powersheets, I also identified 3 or 4 goals that I wanted to be spending time on weekly that will help me get where I want to be long term. So I just sort of combined those again, like I did my daily, so I could see what those tasks are all in one place with my monthly calendar, and I'm not flipping back and forth between the previous spread and this spread. So it looks a little bit cramped, but I find that it's still very comfortable for me to use, since the majority of this page is just me checking things off versus writing things in. I am pulling out my Tombow dual brush pen just to sort of create some accent color. This is in the number 553. I think this may be my favorite Tombow dual brush pen. It's a toss-up between this and the lilac, which is 620, but 553 is like more of a bluey purple, and it's one of my favorite colors, so I wanted to pull it out for March because March is my birthday month. So I created a line just over those headers for my habit trackers, sort of created a backdrop behind the top of my calendar, and then I'm just doodling in some stars and moons and little things like that. This was inspired by the Coffee Monsters Co. She did a plan with me in February where she kind of did these like low-key galaxy doodles throughout the spreads, and I found that to be a very attainable doodle for me. I felt that that was right up my alley. It wasn't like over the top, and it was something a little bit different than I would normally do. I'm not usually a big decorator, but within this week I thought, or rather within this month, because it's my birthday month, it would be fun to get a little bit more creative and try something new. So I will link the Coffee Monsters Co. Helen's channel in the description box below if you want to check that out and kind of see how she incorporated those doodles within her weekly spread. I did end up creating a few extra boxes at the end of the month because I wasn't sure how I was going to handle the 1st and the 8th split, since there was 6 weeks and I wanted to maximize space on this page for my habit trackers. So I just pulled out some washi tape from the Coffee Monsters Co. to cover that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and place down my Coffee Monsters Co. tab on my monthly. I will again have Helen's shop linked down below for you guys. If you can't tell, I am slightly obsessed with emojis, but I love having tabs within my bullet journal. They just make things so much more functional for me, especially because I don't have a million bookmarks within the cover that I usually tuck this notebook into. So I pulled out that brush pen again and just wrote in March inbox at the top of the page behind my monthly calendar. That's the way this is still tabbed. In January, the way I had this planner set up, I sort of had an inbox page where it was just like something popped in for the month, and I didn't know what week I wanted to do that in. I just wrote it on the inbox page, and it really helped streamline a lot of things for me and took a lot of the guesswork about where things needed to go. So I'm trying that again for March. Flipping the page, I'm moving on to the few trackers that I like to have throughout the month, and I'm bringing back gratitude tracking for March. This is something that I decided I was duplicating too much in February, so I opted to leave that only within the journal that I do write down my daily gratitude for. But I found that I wasn't picking up that notebook as regularly, and this is sort of like my habit tracker for filling out my gratitude journal, if that makes any sense. So this is not like word for word what I'm writing in that other journal, but I sort of summarize what I write in my gratitude journal here, and that's how I know that I did in fact fill out my gratitude journal for the day. And I'm pulling out that dual brush pen and just creating a highlight on the weekend, so I've got a better visual feel about where I am throughout the month in terms of day of the week without having to write in all the days of the week. Moving on to the next page, I'm writing in finances again with that brush pen from Tombow, and I'm going to create 2 swatches using my dual brush pen. And this is the exact same version of the tracker that I've been doing all year, and I create a section for me to track my personal fun money spending, and then another small area to write down any transactions that get charged to the wrong account. Next, we're going to move into setting up my first weekly spread. Typically, I set up all 4 or 5 weeklies for the month at the very beginning, and I just sort of flip to that as I need to pre-plan throughout the month. But because I added that monthly inbox page, I'm trying to allow my weeklies and my daily pages to feel a little bit more organic. And what that means to me is that I'm trying to do a little bit less pre-planning and more about have that inbox be the home for the things that I know need to happen throughout the month, have my monthly calendar keep track of the events and appointments that I may forget that are important, that aren't going to remind me on my work Outlook calendar, and then once it gets to the week, go in, fill this in a little bit more true to what my calendar actually looks like the week before, instead of putting in events and meetings 3 or 4 weeks before that end up getting canceled. So I'm doing this with a horizontal view in the A6 because I'm trying to sort of maximize that space a little bit more. And basically I'm creating 7 rows, 1 for each day of the week. Monday through Friday are 3 rows tall, and Saturday and Sunday are only 2 rows tall because I don't tend to have as many appointments on the weekends. I definitely do a lot of things and have a lot of tasks, but I usually am only going like to one place on Saturday. So that's how I got this to fit best. And then now I'm breaking it up into 4 columns from there. So the very leftmost column is a 3x3, and the other ones are 5 columns wide. And the 3x3 section is where I'm going to write in my date for the calendar. So I will write in the 2nd through the 9th here in a second using that brush pen. And then the 3 columns that remain, I essentially will treat one as like daily overview or all day events. And then the rest I split into AM appointments and PM appointments, so I know what calls I'm going to be on for work, or if I need to remember that I've got a commitment in the evening. And then I'm pulling out that brush pen again to make a swatch, and then I'm writing tasks over that, and that's kind of going to be my running weekly task list. These are the important things that I will migrate from my monthly section onto my weekly, so I don't feel like I need to tackle everything at once. I can kind of limit that scope a little. So this is my setup thus far for March. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, and otherwise I will catch you next time.